Welcome to my channel, The Quiet Observer, where we break down human behavior, psychology, and the patterns most people miss. Now let's get into today's video.
Your intuition might be trying to tell you something important, but are you listening? This video is a vital guide to recognizing the silent red flags in potential adult kidnapping situations. We're dissecting the very real methods predators use to exploit vulnerability and escalate interactions. Knowing these hidden signals could quite literally save your life. Let's start by addressing something that makes many people uncomfortable. When we think about kidnapping, most of us picture scenarios involving children. We've been conditioned to believe that as adults, we're somehow immune to this particular danger. But the reality is far more sobering. Adults are targeted, isolated, and taken every single day, and the tactics used against them are often far more sophisticated than we realize. The difference is that adult victims are approached with methods that exploit our social conditioning, our desire to be helpful, our reluctance to seem rude, and our tendency to rationalize away our own discomfort. The predators who target adults understand something fundamental about human psychology. They know that most of us have been taught to be polite, to give people the benefit of the doubt, and to avoid making scenes. They weaponize these social norms against us. They understand that there's a split second where your brain registers danger, but your socialization tells you to ignore it, to smile, to engage, to not cause offense. And it's in that split second that the foundation for an attack is laid. Now, before we dive deeper, I want you to understand that this isn't about becoming paranoid or viewing every stranger as a threat. This is about developing a calibrated sense of awareness, about learning to recognize patterns that deviate from normal social interaction, and about trusting that inner voice that tells you something is off. Because here's the truth that gets lost in our day-to-day lives: normal people, even when they need help or want to strike up a conversation, will respect your boundaries. They'll accept a polite no. They'll maintain appropriate physical distance. They won't push, pressure, or persist when you show discomfort. When someone violates these basic social contracts, that's not just awkward, it's a signal. Let's talk about the psychology of someone who would target an adult for abduction. These individuals are often highly skilled at reading people. They're looking for specific markers of vulnerability, and these markers aren't always what you'd expect. Yes, someone who appears physically isolated is an obvious target, but predators also look for emotional vulnerability. They notice the person who seems distracted, stressed, or overwhelmed. They watch for those who are in transitional moments, perhaps recently moved to a new area, going through a breakup, or dealing with a personal crisis. These emotional states create what predators see as opportunities, because people in these states are often more receptive to friendly overtures and less likely to trust their defensive instincts. One of the most important things to understand is that these scenarios rarely begin with overt aggression. In fact, the approach is often disarmingly normal, even friendly. This is what makes it so insidious. The interaction starts in a way that seems innocuous, sometimes even helpful. Someone approaches you in a parking lot, maybe at a grocery store, claiming they need directions or their phone battery died and they need to make a quick call. Or perhaps you're at a coffee shop and someone strikes up a conversation that seems perfectly pleasant at first. The key is what happens next, how the interaction evolves, and whether the person respects the natural boundaries of a brief, casual exchange. Let's examine some specific red flags that should immediately heighten your awareness. The first is what I call the persistence pattern. You provide an answer, you offer a brief response, you indicate through your body language or words that the interaction is complete, but the person continues. They ask follow-up questions. They move closer instead of maintaining or increasing distance. They introduce new topics or new requests. Normal strangers accept closure. Predators test boundaries by pushing past them incrementally. Each small violation is designed to be just subtle enough that you question whether you're overreacting, but collectively, they're establishing a dynamic where your boundaries don't matter. Another critical red flag is what's known as forced teaming. This is when someone uses language that creates a false sense of alliance or partnership. They use words like we or us when there is no established relationship. For example, we should probably get out of this rain, or let's move over there where it's quieter. This linguistic trick bypasses your stranger danger instincts by creating an artificial sense of connection. They're positioning themselves not as an outsider but as someone who's already in your circle, someone with whom you're collaborating. Be immediately suspicious of anyone who speaks as though you're a team when you've just met. Then there's the loan shark approach, where someone offers unsolicited help, especially help you didn't ask for and don't really need. They insist on carrying your groceries, on walking you to your car, on helping you with something you're managing perfectly fine on your own. When you politely decline, they persist. This creates a manufactured debt, a sense that you owe them something, that you're being rude or ungrateful by refusing. This is psychological manipulation at its core. The goal is to get you to override your instincts in favor of social niceties. Remember, genuine offers of help come with an easy acceptance of no. Predatory offers come with pressure and persistence. Pay close attention to charm that feels excessive or inappropriate to the context. We've all had pleasant interactions with strangers, brief moments of connection that brighten our day. But there's a difference between warmth and charm that's weaponized. When someone you've just met is showering you with compliments, mirroring your every comment, and creating an intensity of connection that doesn't match the situation, that's a tactic. Predators often use what's called grooming behavior, even in short interactions. They want you to feel special, seen, understood, because people who feel that way are more likely to lower their defenses. Now let's talk about geographical manipulation. This is when someone tries to move you from a public, populated area to a more isolated one. The request might seem reasonable on the surface. Their car is just around the corner and they want to show you something. There's a better coffee shop just down this alley. Their friend's shop is just a block away and they can help you there. Any attempt to redirect your location should be met with firm refusal. This is one of the most dangerous escalations because once you're isolated, the power dynamic shifts dramatically. Predators need privacy to act, and they'll create seemingly logical reasons to get it. Watch for conversational mining, where someone asks you increasingly personal questions. They want to know if you live alone, what your schedule is, whether you're new to the area, if you have family nearby. These questions might be scattered throughout what seems like friendly conversation, but they're gathering intelligence. They're mapping your vulnerability, your support system, your routines. Normal small talk doesn't drill into these specifics. When someone pushes past surface-level conversation into your personal life details, especially your living situation and whether people would notice if you were missing, that's reconnaissance. There's also the deliberate violation of personal space. Most people instinctively maintain what's called social distance, typically about 4 feet, during interactions with strangers. When someone repeatedly moves into your personal space, that intimate zone within 2 feet, despite you stepping back or angling away, they're demonstrating dominance and testing your responses. They're communicating that your physical boundaries are negotiable. This is particularly concerning when combined with other red flags because it shows they're comfortable making you uncomfortable, that they prioritize their agenda over your obvious discomfort. Let me address something that causes a lot of confusion: the difference between social awkwardness and predatory behavior. Some people are genuinely awkward, socially anxious, or just not good at reading cues. How do you tell the difference? The key is in the response to your boundaries. An awkward person, when you clearly establish a boundary, will typically become even more flustered and back off, often apologizing. They don't want to make you uncomfortable. A predator, on the other hand, will often become more charming, try to make you feel like you're the one misunderstanding, or escalate their tactics. They might make you feel guilty for being defensive, or they'll reframe the interaction to make you question your own judgment. Discounting the word no is perhaps the single most important red flag. This applies to any context, any request, any interaction. When you say no and someone attempts to negotiate with you, convince you, or simply ignores what you've said, you are dealing with someone who does not respect your autonomy. It doesn't matter how reasonable their request seems or how uncomfortable you feel about being firm. No is a complete sentence, and anyone who treats it as the opening of a negotiation is showing you exactly who they are. This is boundary testing at its most fundamental level. Let's discuss what I call the friendly stranger paradox. We're taught to be helpful, to assist those in need, and these are genuinely good impulses. But predators understand this and exploit it ruthlessly. Here's a critical principle: it is not your responsibility to solve a stranger's problem, especially when doing so requires you to compromise your safety. If someone truly needs help, there are multiple resources available to them that don't require you to put yourself in a vulnerable position. A person with genuinely good intentions will understand when you offer alternative help, like calling the police or suggesting a nearby business where they can get assistance. Someone with malicious intent will push past those alternatives and insist that you specifically must help them in the way they're requesting. Technology has added new dimensions to these risks. Someone might claim their phone is dead and ask to use yours, but then walk away with it or use the opportunity while you're unlocked to gather information. They might ask you to help them navigate to an address on your phone, getting access to your maps and potentially your location data. They could request you add them on social media right then to send you something, immediately giving them access to your network and information. Be extremely cautious about giving strangers access to your technology. Offer to make a call for them, but keep your phone in your hand. Suggest they go to a nearby store or ask an employee for help instead. Environmental awareness is crucial. Predators often target people in transitional spaces, places where you're moving from one location to another. Parking garages, parking lots, stairwells, walkways between buildings, these are all areas where you're between destinations, often distracted by thoughts of where you're going or what you're doing. This is when you're most vulnerable. Before you leave a building, before you exit your car, take a moment to scan the environment. Look for anyone loitering without apparent purpose, anyone whose attention seems fixed on you, any vehicles that seem out of place or have been in the same location for an extended period. The time of day matters too. Attacks happen at all hours, but transitional times like early morning, late afternoon, and evening provide cover. There are people around, but not the same level of foot traffic as midday. The lighting is changing, creating shadows and reducing visibility. If you're establishing a routine where you're regularly in certain locations at predictable times, vary it when possible. Predators often surveil their targets, learning patterns before they act. Let's talk about the aftermath of ignoring these signals, because understanding the stakes is important. Many victims of attempted abductions report that they noticed something was wrong but talked themselves out of their concern. They didn't want to seem paranoid, they felt they were overreacting, they worried about being rude or making assumptions. This self-doubt is so dangerous because your subconscious often recognizes threats before your conscious mind can articulate why. That feeling of unease, that tightness in your chest, that voice saying something is off, these are not random. They're your survival instincts processing information faster than your rational mind can. There's a concept in security circles called the gift of fear, and it's precisely this. Fear, in these contexts, is not your enemy. It's information. It's your brain telling you that the pattern you're experiencing doesn't match safe patterns. When you feel that spike of discomfort around someone, when your body tenses or you feel an urge to leave, honor that. You don't need to be able to articulate exactly what's wrong. You don't need evidence that would convince a third party. You just need to listen to yourself and act. So what do you actually do when you recognize these red flags? First, trust your assessment. Don't minimize what you're feeling. Second, create distance immediately. You don't need to explain, you don't need to be polite about it. A simple "I need to go" or even just turning and walking away is completely acceptable. If you're in a parking lot, get back into your car and drive to a different location or a police station. If you're in a building, go to a populated area, find security or employees, make yourself visible and surrounded by others. If someone is following you or persisting despite your attempts to disengage, make noise. Draw attention. Yell "Leave me alone" or "I don't know this person." Most predators rely on you being too embarrassed or polite to make a scene. Making a scene is exactly what you should do. People respond to clear distress, and witnesses serve as both deterrents and potential help. Have your phone ready and be prepared to call emergency services. Even if you're not certain you're in danger, if you feel threatened enough that you're considering it, make the call. Describe the person, your location, and the behavior that's concerning you. Emergency dispatchers would rather respond to a situation that turns out to be nothing than have you wait until you're certain and potentially lose the opportunity to get help. Consider carrying a personal alarm, a loud whistle, or other attention-getting devices. The goal is never to be a hero or to confront a potential threat directly. The goal is to escape and summon help. Your safety is not about proving you were right about the threat. It's about taking action when something doesn't feel right. Teach the people in your life about these red flags as well. Share your concerns when you notice someone you care about engaging with someone who's showing these warning signs. We often see things more clearly when we're not the ones in the interaction. Create a culture among your friends and family where you watch out for each other and where leaving a situation without explanation is normalized and supported. Remember too that these tactics can happen online before they ever manifest in person. Someone you meet on social media or a dating app who pushes to meet in person quickly, who wants to meet in isolated locations, who asks probing questions about your living situation and schedule, who doesn't respect your pace or boundaries in conversation. These are the same red flags translated to a digital space. The isolation and control tactics begin in the messages before they ever attempt to meet you. Be just as vigilant about online behavior as you would be in person. The truth is, most people you encounter in daily life are not threats. Most interactions are genuinely innocent. But the cost of ignoring a real threat is so high that we must be willing to prioritize our safety over social comfort. There is no embarrassment in being wrong about someone being dangerous. There is only tragedy in being right and not acting on it. As we close this discussion, I want to leave you with this thought. Your safety is your responsibility, but it's not about living in fear. It's about living with awareness. It's about reclaiming your instincts from the social conditioning that tells you to doubt them. You have permission to be rude. You have permission to leave. You have permission to say no without explanation. You have permission to prioritize your safety over someone else's feelings, especially someone you don't know. These silent signals, these red flags we've discussed, they're speaking to you constantly. The question is whether you're listening. Whether you're willing to act on what you sense. Whether you're prepared to trust yourself even when it feels uncomfortable. The answer to those questions might truly save your life. You'll find links to recommended self-help books in the description below, resources that can help you further develop these awareness skills and build your confidence in trusting your instincts. And if you found this content valuable, if it gave you new perspective or tools to protect yourself and the people you care about, drop a comment below and let me know your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss content that could make a real difference in your safety and awareness. Stay safe out there, stay aware, and remember that your intuition is one of the most powerful tools you have.
Thanks for watching The Quiet Observer. If you'd like to go deeper, I've linked some helpful self-help books in the description below. I'll see you in the next video.